Hey there, Jamie here at Labradoodlecare.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to properly brush your Labradoodle. Now, people love Labradoodles because of their beautiful coats, and many owners like to keep their coats longer on their Labradoodle. And if that's the case for you, if you like the look of a longer coat on a Labradoodle, then it's going to be really important for you to keep that coat healthy. Now, I want to talk to you first, before I bring Oliver over, about some of the tools that you'll want to make sure that you have so that you can properly care for your Labradoodle's coat. Now, the very first thing is a slicker brush. Now, the slicker brush that I use is made by Furminator, and it's got two different sides. One of the sides has straight pins, and the other side has pins that are bent. I like to use this kind of as a finishing touch once I know that I've gotten all the tangles and any mats that might be in Oliver's coat. I like to use the Furminator. Now, one thing I will say about this brush is I feel like it does tend to give a little bit more of a fluffy look, which I'm not a big fan of, but it definitely is a nice finishing brush. The very next thing is sometimes referred to as a Poodle Comb. Basically what it is it's a stainless steel comb. You can see on one side the parts of the comb are further apart, and then one side they are closer together. So I'll be showing you this more a little bit later in this video, so I'm going to keep this out. The next brush is called a Rake. That's typically what it's called. This is a Safari brand. I like Safari's products just because I feel like they're well made. They're comfortable to use, which I think is important. And I've actually started to use this one more commonly. When I first got Oliver, I used the Poodle Comb, or the stainless steel comb, a lot, along with the slicker brush. But the slicker brush has actually taken the backseat to this Rake more recently. So Oliver's 7 months old, and he's actually going through the phase in a Labradoodle's life where they start to lose their puppy coat and they transition into their adult coat. Something I'll talk a little bit more about later. And the next tool is called a dematting comb. And you can see it's in a little plastic protector here because it is actually pretty sharp. So this side is kind of like corrugated or serrated, and it is sharp. And then the other side is not sharp. And basically the way that you use this is use it to take mats out of their fur, and you just kind of work this through the mat, and basically the serrated part cuts the mat out. So I've never actually had to use this with Oliver. I think it's because I just brush him fairly regularly. And that's really important in getting the puppy or the dog used to being brushed, is doing it regularly, and if at all possible, trying to do it in short increments. So when you first introduce it to them, keep it really, really short. You don't want them to start to associate brushing with a negative experience. Brushing is actually a good opportunity to bond with your dog, so it's really important for them to like it. And you can do that by keeping toys around when you're doing it. Let them play with the toy, and then also treats. So you'll see that once I bring Oliver over. And the final thing that I think really helps in the overall process is a really good detangler. Now, we've been using Cowboy Magic since we got Oliver. It was actually recommended to us by someone else who owned a Labradoodle. So we actually use this once he gets out of the bath. We put it on his fur or his coat and just kind of rub it in. It's a really, really great product. And it seems to keep his coat healthier and less susceptible to tangles. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Oliver out of his crate. I'm going to bring him over here and just kind of show you how I go through the process of brushing him. So, just one second, I'm going to bring Oliver over. Come on, bud. Alright, so here is Oliver. I'm going to try and keep him entertained through this video. I've got some treats and some toys for him. So Oliver has what's called a Fleece Coat. Now the Fleece Coat is kind of crinkly or wavy, especially towards the base. You can definitely see that a little bit more. But it's really important with this kind of coat that you keep it well maintained and brush it frequently. So I started brushing Oliver daily when we first brought him home when he was 8 weeks old. And he tolerated it pretty good then, and then he started to not like it so much. So it is getting to be a little bit more of a struggle with him, but I found that if I brush him in slower increments of time or smaller increments of time, that he is more tolerable with it. So there's a couple different areas on a Labradoodle that it's really important that you focus on. Now I'm going to kind of rattle off some of those areas and explain why. So one of the first areas is underneath the ears. I don't know why, but especially if they play with other dogs, a lot of times other dogs like to go for the dog's ears, so that can tend to mat up fairly frequently. Other thing is around like their ankles, like towards the base of their feet, towards their paws. Also their collar. So where their collar is on their neck is really susceptible to mats. So you definitely want to make sure that you pay close attention to that. And then also their armpits, just because it's an area that's really easy to overlook. So one of the biggest issues that comes with people brushing their Labradoodle is they think that they're doing a really great job, but what they're actually doing is they're just kind of brushing the surface. So the biggest tip is make sure that you are getting all the way down to their skin when you're brushing them. All right, so I would say if you're gonna get only one tool, this is probably the best tool for you to get. This is still the tool that I use the most, is the stainless steel comb. And when I'm brushing Oliver with it, or combing him with it rather, I like to start with the end where the pieces of the comb are further apart. That way if there's any tangles or anything like that, it's a little bit easier to move through there. And then after I go through and get any tangles out, then I'll switch it to the side that has the parts of the comb closer together. So the biggest thing is you want to kind of focus on an area. You want to work from, maybe if you want to work from the back to the front, I typically will start with Oliver's face, and I will just hold, he's used to me holding his muzzle, so I'll usually hold his muzzle, and then I'll start to work out his beard area. And then once I've done that, then I'll move on to his ears. I'll get his ear leather all brushed out really nicely, and also under his ears. And then I'll move to his neck, and I'll make sure that I get not only the top, but also the sides and the under part of his neck as well, because he wears a collar the majority of the time. So that area does tend to get a little bit more tangled. Then I'll move on to his chest, and then his belly, and then I'll also work down his front arms, down his front paw, or get his front paws. And then I'll move to his midsection, and then back to his rear end, and make sure that all that is taken care of as well. So the biggest thing when it comes to combing or brushing them out is, like I said, you want to make sure that you get down to the skin. And the easiest way to do that is to work in just little sections and work a row at a time, and just make sure that you're able to get the comb through. And then when you're able to get the comb through freely, then you move on to the next section. Now, Oliver does actually lose a little bit of fur when he is brushed. And you can see here, I'll show you. He actually just got groomed 2 days ago, so his coat is actually pretty clear. But you know, there's a misconception. People think that Labradoodles don't shed whatsoever. Well, he doesn't shed unless I'm actively combing or brushing him. So that's the biggest thing. And the reason for that is when a Labradoodle matures and when their coat changes, usually right around 6 months, they'll actually start to change into their adult coat. And when that process occurs, it's really, really important that you brush regularly. And you want to make sure that you get out the puppy coat, which is what's here in the comb, so that you can make room for their adult coat. If you fail to do that, your dog is more than likely going to start to get mats, because what happens is they don't have a way to, it's okay buddy, they don't have a way to get the puppy coat out. So they rely on you to help pull that out. So if you don't pull it out by combing them regularly, the puppy coat and the adult coat are going to get tangled, and it's going to form a mat. So hopefully you found this helpful, and if you already have a Labradoodle, hopefully you're already doing some of these practices. If you're considering getting a Labradoodle, it's really important that you make sure that brushing and caring for their coat is a priority. We've got all of the products that I've kind of talked to you about, or tools that I like to use personally and use on a regular basis We've got those over at labradoodlecare.com/recommended. Now that's all of our recommended products, and then if you go and look at the grooming supplies, those are the tools that I actually use with Oliver. So hopefully you found that helpful. Again, labradoodlecare.com/recommended. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you tune into our next video. Thanks.